Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Talking Tradesman. Today I have Jeff Raybold. Jeff is a PT and nutritionist. Would that be right?
Nutrition coach, physique coach. Yeah.
Boom, there we go. So Jeff has got an interesting life experience himself that we're going to get into, but also we're going to talk about the whole connection between mental health, physical health, and how important it is to stay fit and active for your mental health. First of all, though, mate, let's find out a little bit about yourself. So, yeah, probably the best person to introduce who you are, what you do, how long you've done it is you.
Okay, so Jeff Raybold here. In terms of being a physique coach, I started 2012, 2013. I graduated with my degree in sport and exercise science in 2012. Was going for grad job interviews, and I didn't like any of the jobs that were available. And I just started helping people for free initially with their nutrition, with their training, supplementation. I'd always had pretty good results with myself in terms of growing muscle, losing body fat. And I felt intrigued to see if I could help others with trying to accomplish the same kind of results.
You've won bodybuilding awards yourself.
Yeah. I've won a few shows, in PCA and NABA. And I got into weight training when I was about 15, 16, but I was in gyms from a very young age. My dad sometimes used to take me in a carry cart to gyms and just put me on the gym counter. So I was in gyms from a very young age.
So your dad was into his training and all that kind of
very
thing.
much so. Yeah. He taught me a lot. And it was very good to be in that environment around big, scary guys. They're all good people, really. So I felt calmer in the atmosphere. Like the gym, for me, a lot of the time has felt like home. There's many times where I've been in the gym and I'm just like, this is where I need to be. This is where I should be. And the gym and coaching other people and progressing my own physique, I find is a really positive focus and obviously builds confidence. And I just wanted to transfer what I've learned over to other people, because so many people, I feel, really hate their bodies. There's relationships where couples don't have sex with a light on, right? Because they don't feel confident in their own body. And to me, that's something that I just feel is not acceptable. And, you should feel confident in your own body. You should feel happy in your own body. Don't get me wrong. There's some people that are maybe not so much in shape, but they are still confident and happy in their body. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But some people, they actually need to look in the mirror and be happy with what they see, to have confidence, and to feel as though they can have a great relationship with their partner and they're not too insecure about their body and that kind of stuff. Carry on.
Yeah, well, do you know what, mate? So the whole mission of this podcast is kind of to try and explore and unpick the whole mental health crisis, particularly in general, but particularly in men, because, unfortunately, men make up 3/4 of all suicides in the UK at the moment. It's the biggest killer of men under 50. So one of those things is confidence.
Yeah.
And like you say, like physical health, mental health, and obviously
definitely linked.
You know more than anybody that physical health and exercise plays a massive contributory role to how you feel about yourself.
Definitely.
You get that good endorphin release and all the rest of it.
It is
so it's something that I want to talk about because it's one of those elements that I've had this conversation a few times now where we talk about people that are struggling with their mental health. And what I want to be able to do is offer help as well as just talk to people that have struggled. And identifying people's or getting people to look at their lifestyle, I think, is key.
Absolutely.
Because once you recognise that you're struggling with your mental health, it's a case of then examining yourself and looking and thinking, well, hold on, let's take a little look here.
Where's the issues?
Yeah, exactly
and
that.
Try and work on those issues to try and bring you into a better place.
100%, mate.
I mean, I failed to mention just when I was about 15, I felt as though I didn't really have any purpose. I wasn't the best at concentrating at school. I remember one of my teachers saying to my mother, actually, he'll probably just work in Tesco for the rest of his life. Wow. Even though I wasn't working at Tesco at that point, I eventually did get a job at Tesco for a while.
did.
But I actually came out of that job when I was at university because I was financially in a good position.
What did you study at uni?
Sport and exercise science.
Okay.
So back to when I was 15, I felt as though I had no purpose. And I think I had symptoms of depression. And then thankfully I actually met a girl when I was 15, and she helped me kind of elevate. And as I got more into the gym and developed my physique, she loved that. And seeing her kind of being proud of me, that really helped me kind of progress even more. And she'd say like, "Oh, don't get any bigger." And then I'd get a little bit bigger, and she'd go, "Actually, I quite like it." And then it was like a constant thing. And I find that when you do have a positive focus, maybe you don't have a job or career. Some people, they just have the gym, right? And some people may think that's a bit like self-absorbed or narcissistic to just progress your own physique. But some people, as we both know, have things like obesity, which massively affects their mental health. There's things like bulimia, anorexia, that I've coached a lot of people from really bad places with bulimia or anorexia to develop their physique, to give them confidence to eat more food, to be in a better mental state. And it can be men and women that have, bulimia and anorexia. So yeah, having a positive image of yourself and how you look, I think, can really help with your mental health, in my opinion.
When you've mentioned a couple of like eating disorders there, just might throw a curveball in here. Have you experienced people that go unhealthy with their sort of like obsession with training, like obsessional?
Yeah, absolutely. I know of girls and guys that really suffer with anorexia and bulimia, and they'll be in the gym 7 days a week, but they won't be eating anything.
Right.
And that can push you into a really dark place with exhaustion, fatigue, and almost becoming dysfunctional because you're not feeding your body enough, but you're going to the gym thinking that you look bad and burning yourself out. And with a lot of people that come on board with me, I actually have to pull them back. I have to actually say, right, I need you to train less. I need you to eat more. And I promise you, you will be happy with the results and get them out of that negative mind space about their physique.
Because I know, like, with what you do, because one of the things I noticed that you said was that you were, how did you describe yourself again, Jeff? So it was PT and...
A physique coach, really.
Physique coach,
so
right.
I personal train people, and I still do, actually, not as much as I used to, as I have a lot more clients online now. So like 90% of my clients are online. But yeah, I PT'd quite heavily from about 2013 till probably about 2021.
So physique coach, is that like for people that compete in bodybuilding?
So, I've taken people from 20 odd stone, very high body fat to winning bodybuilding shows. Like, I love working with people from the ground up. And the particular guy that I was in my mind that was over 20 stone, he'd never even been to a gym in his life. And he came on board with me as a PT client.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even squat the bar. And then eventually he was actually squatting more than me. I think he still squats more than me, actually. So yeah, seeing those transformations, that gives me a sense of purpose and makes me think, right, this is what I'm destined to do. This is what I'm
helping people, mate.
It gives me job satisfaction.
I mean, before we move too much further, for anyone that wants to see, I'm assuming that you've got pictures of these results.
Yeah, my Instagram's full of pictures.
What's your Instagram?
Jeff Raybold, literally just that.
Jeff Raybold.
And
go and give Jeff a follow.
Some people think it's Jeff Ray Bold, as in my surname is Bold, Bould. But no, it's Jeff Raybold. Yeah,
right. Go give Jeff a follow. If you don't already, you can talk about these. You can see visually these results that we're talking about. I'm sure
there's plenty of that.
yeah, mate. It's essentially exactly that. It's helping people, isn't it?
100%.
I mean, let's talk about your journey. So you went from 15, because I know you said pre-record when you came in that you weren't a confident person before. So let's talk about how it's all sort of changed for you.
Yeah, I can really touch on that. So when I was 15, I didn't really have much confidence at all. I may have seemed as though I did, but I didn't really. To the point people thought that I was arrogant just because I didn't know how to really speak to people that well. And I think some people thought that I was quite arrogant. And the problem was then, when I started to put on the muscle, get bigger and bigger and bigger, people would look at me and think, oh, he's this big, arrogant, muscly guy. but really I was just really shy in the gym and just had a lot of muscle.
Okay.
And then when I got into personal training, I then was forced to develop my communication skills, forced to communicate with people, forced to communicate common ground. Because otherwise, I know that if I didn't develop relationships with clients, I wouldn't be successful with what I was doing. So I had to be a person that developed their communication skills to earn money, basically. And I actually think that a lot of people are held back by their confidence. And again, that could be because they feel out of shape, or they don't feel good looking, or they might not smile at people because their teeth are bad or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I've had issues with. I'm like, right, that's a problem. Okay, how can I fix that problem then? And then let's say you've got a list of things that is a knock in your confidence. Work on them. Tick them off, fix those things, because then that's only going to elevate you as a person.
Yeah. I think one of the main stumbling blocks is, if I'm honest, like take you for example, you're a big guy, you're heavily muscled, you're in great shape. If you're out of shape, it's that first step, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's the intimidation of thinking, if I walk into a gym, it's full of 50 Jeffs that are all going to be absolutely ripped to shreds, throwing weight around like it's nothing. And it's that confidence of getting people through the door. How do you find that?
So what I do now is, when a client contacts me, I will get them on a call. Whether it's an online client or a personal training client, I'll get them on a call, and they will talk about their vulnerabilities generally of going to a gym, to the point where sometimes they'll say, I can't go to a gym. How can I work with you and still get in shape? And I'll always find a method, a way of developing their physique, to the point then they will be confident enough to go in a gym.
Right.
But honestly, like, I go to bodybuilding shows, right? And I obviously compete. And some of the nicest people ever you will find at bodybuilding shows. Some of the biggest, most muscular females and males. Like, my mom goes to the shows and she'll go, everyone's so lovely. Like, the people that are at these shows are there generally because they admire what people are doing at the pinnacle level of physique development. I think everyone goes to the gym for different reasons, right? Some go for social, some go for actually getting results, some go to meet girls or guys. But for me, particularly in the early days, when I used to go with my friends, they'd be all like looking at girls, and I'd be like, come on, let's train. Like, we're here to do something. We're here to get a result. We're here to, work on our physiques, not just stare at girls. And I'm still like that now. Like, I'm still in that mindset. Like, when I'm at the gym, I'm not interested in really looking around. I'm there for a purpose. The gym that I'm at now is a very social gym. Like, last night I was in the gym, and I think I had probably about 10 people come up and speak to me while I was there.
You still at the local gym?
Foundry, yeah.
Yeah, Foundry, yeah. That's right. Jeff is actually, because I'll get guests come from all over the country.
Yeah.
Jeff's actually a local. Yeah. Jeff lives in my town, so yeah, it's a local gym, hence why I know where he trains.
Yeah. And there's a great crowd there, and it is very sociable. And the thing is, once people know me, they'll speak to me more, because yeah, I am one of the more muscular guys in the gym. Yeah, I am someone that's been successful in bodybuilding to a degree. I like nowhere near as much as some people, but I've done all right in bodybuilding. And I think people like to have that communication with you, because they see you as like almost like a voice of authority, because you know how to get there. The methods and all that kind of stuff. Like, I had a guy last night come over to me. It's like, what should I eat? And, what exercise plan should I do? And I'm like, if I tell you now, it's like, just jump on a call with me and I will coach you through the whole process, because me just giving you a few little tips here and there, particularly if you're not paying for it, you may not follow it. And, so yeah.
That's true, mate. Yeah, the people that allocate value to it's a weird one, actually, because there's a lot of psychology behind that.
You respect it more if you pay for it.
People don't allocate value to three things. Which, there's a lot behind that one. How important would you say, because you must see this, how important would you say that having a purpose is when you're talking about men and their mental health and, that like condition where, because you guys, that have gone to the extreme. I mean, there's going to the gym.
Yeah.
There's getting in shape.
Yeah.
And then there's doing what you do, which is bodybuilding, which is a totally different element.
I think anyone that goes to the gym that's trying to work, like bodybuilding is, the competitive bodybuilding is the pinnacle of fat loss and growing muscle. What are most people going to the gym for? To lose body fat and to grow muscle, right? So when you're at that pinnacle level, it's easier for me to help people that are just trying to lose a bit of body fat and just trying to grow a bit of muscle. Back to the purpose thing. Purpose is, why are you alive if you've not got purpose? It's like, find a purpose. And I believe everyone, man or woman, has a purpose. And you have to be very open-minded to find that sometimes, more open-minded than you would believe sometimes. I've been lucky. I've had very supportive parents, very supportive family that have given me the opportunity to seek my purpose and not force me into a certain direction. Like, my dad did want me to be an architect, but when I realized you had to go to university for 6 years.
Well, I mean, technically you're still building something.
yeah. So like, I think my dad wanted me to be an architect for his own use to do his property design. But everyone's got a purpose. And I want to say to everyone that's watching this, everyone has a purpose. Keep looking for it if you haven't found it, and it will do wonders for your mental health. Because once you find your path, your purpose, and you continue with your journey, that will bring you up straight away. I think a lot of people just sit down and do nothing. And
I think physical exercise. I think if you're struggling with your mental health, you're not feeling good, whether it's anxiety, depression, whatever, just getting out and moving is such a big thing. It's such like first step.
Amazing.
Just go for it. Even if you're feeling shit, go for a walk. See how you feel when you get back. You'll feel better. You don't have to go to a gym and start training in that respect to that comes down the line. But if you go for a walk and that makes you feel a bit better, then maybe do think about joining a gym.
And you're exactly right. And like, slightly still on topic, but nutrition wise, like, a lot of people eat foods that it's almost like they're on drugs, if that makes sense. So like, they'll eat certain foods, like junk foods, that will elicit a response in the brain of like dopamine. Like, they might eat some chocolate or something, or a cake, and that'll give them a dopamine response. And because they've got no purpose, they're only getting that dopamine release from junk food. Whereas if you exercise, if you follow your purpose and you're relentless with that, and you see success, each time you hit a successful spot, you'll get that dopamine release, and you'll continue with that purpose, with your journey. And you don't need drugs, or you don't need food to get that same buzz, because you're following your path.
Mate, listen, obviously a large proportion of my audience are in the building trades, and nutrition is such a hot topic, because I'll be honest with you, mate, and I've lived this life. A lot of us, and not all of us, to those of you that are like meal prepping and that, tip my hat to you.
It's the way forward.
But a lot of us, mate, a lot of our nutrition, and I'm one of them at the minute, a lot of our nutrition is terrible. Like, we're talking meal deals and all that kind of stuff.
I coach a lot of, I take on a lot of guys in your position. Like,
there you go, mate.
It's always the same at the start. And it's pulling them away from that and getting them to be more strategic with their food intake, which helps with your performance at work, helps with bringing your body fat down, helps with growing your muscle mass, helps with your mindset. But yeah, just filling up on junk food all the time, like with many tradesmen. There's better ways to live and better ways to nourish your body.
100%. And it plays into, again, the gut health, mental health connection.
Gut health,
and, it's that 3 p.m. crash that a lot of us experience, because we've gone for that high sugar, those meal deal, like, you get that burst of energy straight after. For about 2 hours, then you get the come down, then you feel like crap, then you go home. And it's one of the spirals, mate. There's so many issues around mental health in construction. And I do believe that is a big part of it.
There's a few simple things that people can do. In the UK, we lack vitamin D, right? We don't get enough sun. So simply, when I take a client on, one of the first things that I address is their vitamin D intake. Where are their vitamin D levels? Because if a person is deficient in vitamin D, they're more likely to have depression.
Right.
So most people in the UK should be supplementing with vitamin D. From what I found with the clients that I've worked with, a lot of clients come on board with me, we'll get their bloods done, and we'll have a look at their vitamin D levels. And I found that I think it was like 80% of them were deficient in vitamin D. That will directly impact your mental health. So vitamin D on waking works. There's other supplements. Omega-3 can help with your brain function and brain health as well. Zinc and magnesium. And again, things like magnesium can help with anxiety. When people are feeling like really anxious, something like magnesium can calm them down and put them in a better state. Also, ashwagandha is very good as well.
I've heard a lot of that. Is that mushroom extract?
Ashwagandha.
Yeah.
No. It's a herb.
Okay.
But I found ashwagandha quite a few years ago, and I use it before bed. Sometimes I use it directly post-workout. I actually used it before today, before we came on here, because it just puts you in a more like stable mindset and calms any nerves and anxiety and stuff like that. And yeah, it's cheap. You know, like if you get a good brand is Strom. Plug. And
the brand is called Strom.
Strom. S-T-R-O-M.
I thought you said strong.
Yeah, Strom. S-T-R-O-M. And they're a company that are brilliant in terms of their supplementation, their formulas. They've got some fantastic products. And they do an ashwagandha that I use that 100% works. And I think it's like £20 for like 120 capsules.
One a day?
I say to people maximum 2 generally. I have had clients that, I mean, yeah, they've had severe anxiety issues and they're taking like 3 like throughout the day and stuff like that. But yeah, there's certain things that if you don't, there's body health, right? And then there's mental health, right? And your body health and your mental health is directly impacted on how you nourish yourself, right? So if you're not nourishing yourself correctly, don't expect to have good physical health. Don't expect to have good mental health. If you're deficient in certain things, zinc, magnesium, omega-3, vitamin D, if you're deficient in those, be prepared to have some mental or physical issues. That's why one of the first things that I do when I take a client on is look at their supplementation regime.
Did you get everybody to get their bloods done?
Not every single time. I'm at a point now where I kind of, if I get them on a call and I kind of listen to them about what they're doing, I can pretty much say, right, okay, we need to do this and do this and do this. And then we go from there. And we have like a supplementation strategy, nutrition strategy, training strategy, lifestyle strategy, which one of the biggest things of why people suffer with mental health, I think, as well, is not getting enough sleep.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is people work so much and then they feel like outside of that, they want a life. And then they sometimes have that, but then that then impacts their sleep. It's kind of like a balancing act of, right, how do I have a full-time job? How do I get enough sleep? How do I have a life as well? And it's putting those all together. But I can promise you now, if you consistently get bad sleep, it will affect your mental health. All of the clients that I work with that have the worst sleep are the ones that have the biggest mental health issues.
What's good sleep, Jeff? Like in terms of hours, what do you say is?
I stay to aim for 8 for most people.
See, I'm strict. I know. So I read a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, I think.
He's a great specialist.
Okay, I think it was him. Yeah. Have you read that book?
No, I've seen him on a podcast and he's the bright guy.
There's a book called Why We Sleep, and I thought it'd be a dull book, but it is fascinating. Talks about all the chemical levels in the brain, all that kind of thing. And ever since reading that, I have completely reevaluated how I see sleep. I'm now very protective over it. But now I've paid attention to it, mate, can I notice a difference? In terms of, if I get 8 hours, I'm good. If I get 7 hours, I'm functional, I'm okay. If I get 6, noticeable difference. The difference between 6 and 8, mate, I can pick that up.
Definitely.
So when I hear, and I hear some people talk and they're like, yeah, I'm fine on 4. Are you really? Can you be?
Matthew Walker has said people can do 6 hours for a while, but it will come to a point where it's like, that's not going to work anymore. When you sleep, your body and your mind goes through recovery and restoration processes. And if you consistently get bad sleep, you'll have memory loss, which could then lead to frustration, which could then lead to anger, which then,
strong links to Alzheimer's as well.
yeah,
People with, people who consistently hit their or miss their minimum targets. There's a big
sleep
correlation.
is imperative, and it's just tough. There's some people that are working like 3 jobs or something, and they've got kids and they've got a husband or a wife or whatever, and it's like, it is difficult. Like, I've got a few clients that their kids are always like coming in the night and waking them up and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what to say, because I haven't got children, so I'm like, I don't know how to help you with that situation. Some kids just get in mommy and daddy's bed, and wake them up, and then that affects their sleep. And like, the kids maybe don't need as much sleep. I don't know. It really depends on.
Do you make sure you get 8?
Yeah.
The reason I ask that is you've sent me some messages while we were arranging this at some obscure times. So I'm thinking to myself, is this guy saying about sleep?
No, I get it. It's just sometimes I might wake up, reply to some messages or whatever, and then like I'm always busy with my phone, and it's like I'm just constantly trying to work through things. Like, every day is busy.
Yeah,
with when you're coaching a fair few people, and you have a great communication with them. I'm answering messages all the time, so yeah, sometimes I will answer messages at interesting times. Yeah, but I do get my hour of sleep, and that is imperative, particularly if you are trying to progress your body. You need that recovery time, right? If you don't go to the gym, you're not putting your body under stress. You haven't got to recover from physical activity. Then maybe you don't need as much sleep. But I would agree with that, actually, because there's been times where I wouldn't train for like a month, 2 months, and I don't feel as though I need as much sleep then, because you don't need as much recovery, because you're not trying to recover from weight training sessions, and your muscles aren't trying to grow bigger and stronger and whatnot. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of us, again, to pull it into the trades, it's physical work all day, every day.
Yes.
I mean, me as a painter and decorator, I'm not carrying big, heavy things around, a fat lot, but I look at, say, bricklayers, scaffolders, people in those kind of trades are throwing weight around, people on the hod. We need our recovery. There's no doubting about it. The construction industry is not an easy one. It's not easy on the body. No. So again, anyone listening to this that is struggling with things like their mental health, this is one of the messages I'm trying to get across. We have to start being a bit introspective and going, okay, well, I'm struggling with my mental health. That's point 1 for recognising it. Great. But point 2, am I getting my physical exercise? How's my nutrition? How's my sleep? Start looking at all those things.
Yeah, I think a lot of men, they just feel as though they are maybe the providers to their family, and it doesn't really matter about them. No, it does matter about you. You have to look after yourself too. You might go and do, how many hours do you do, like, when you're on a job? How many hours do you normally do a job for per day?
Me personally, on site, probably 8-hour average.
Okay, so
8 to 10. Do
those 8 hours, and then outside of that, if you can find some time for you to cook proper food, to go to the gym, to have some time to yourself, it's really important, I think.
100%. You have to prioritise yourself, because ultimately, if you break down, everything stops. The business stops. The support stops. You can't provide for your family. Yeah,
exactly.
If you can't.
You are your own biggest asset, so you need to look after yourself. Like, think of all the guys that neglect their health all their life, work really intense jobs, and they drop down dead like at 50, 60 with a heart attack, because they've always neglected their health, right? When you're dead, you can no longer look after your family. So if I could say one thing to men and women out there, look after your not just your mental health, but your physical health as well. Because if you're ill, you can't do anything, right? If you have a severe heart issue or a stroke or something like that, you're screwed. You're not going to work anymore. If it's particularly people that are self-employed, where does that leave you? Unless some people have insurance and stuff. But
it's great advice, though, mate. Like, in the long term, and not only that, you want quality of life. We're not put on this earth just to work and repeat.
I think people watch too much TV. I think, like, I can't remember the last time I watched TV. Probably over a year.
Really?
I might go to the cinema and watch a film, but I struggle to sit at home and watch a film, because I always have work to do. So I'm like, I could be being more productive. So for me, going to the cinema is like a way to kind of just away from everything. Phone doesn't work. focus on one thing, quiet, dark room. But when I'm at home, I'm working generally.
To be honest with you, Jeff, this is one of the things, though, isn't it? It's a big misconception, because when you talk to people and you say about getting out there, doing some physical exercise, going to the gym, 9 times out of 10, your excuse will be, I ain't got time, mate.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then I watched this Netflix series, 40 episodes. I binged on that. That's 40 hours I've put into Netflix in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, you have got time. It's what you're prioritising.
Yeah.
So, like you just said, you don't watch a lot. I don't watch a lot of telly. I haven't got, and generally, because I haven't got time for it, because I'm doing this or I'm doing various other things.
And that's, I mean, some people, I'm sure that certain shows build excitement and increase their dopamine levels. But is that really where you want to be getting your excitement and dopamine levels from? Just watching something on TV. What else could you be doing that's more productive? And the thing is, all that time that you're spending on watching a Netflix show or whatever, it's time that you're not developing yourself.
It's an escape, mate, isn't it? That's what it is. We could go down a real rabbit hole of society and expectations and the programming, as it were. It's an escape. That's why people use a lot of it, whether it's social media or whether it's... In fact, it's an interesting avenue to take this conversation on, social media. Yeah. With what you do and it being such an image-based industry, do you find social media plays a big part in that?
How?
In terms of positive and negative, I guess, because you can look at it both ways. You can look at it as in people are going to have an increased rate of like body anxiety due to the exposure of social media. Yeah. But then you can also look at it as, is that body anxiety through social media actually driving people to try and improve?
I do think that social media has developed the health and fitness industry. I think people are looking at other people's physiques. And one thing that we have to remember, some of these photos are edited, photoshopped, filters. So they're not always realistic. I do think that social media has built the health and fitness industry, the bodybuilding industry more, because there's more exposure to it. Athletes are now more accessible. People that are in great shape are more accessible. There's more online coaches now than ever. In terms of and in combining that with mental health, I think a lot of people it massively affects them in terms of they'll look at how well somebody else is doing.
Yep.
And I said this to one recently, and they were going through a dark point in their life, and they massively compare themselves to other people. And I said, look, you've had a rough start in life. You know, you've not had the support that maybe these people have had. You've not got the genetics that these people have. Maybe you haven't got the time that these people have. You know, you might have a full-time job. You could be working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. That leaves you less time to prep your food, eat correctly, go to the gym, right? These other people could have rich mummies and daddies or businesses that they've built up that they can work just a few hours a day. And now they're in a position where they can go to the gym more, focus more on their appearance and their physical health and whatnot. So it's really important to just stay in your lane and just keep trying to progress yourself. Because when you start to look at other people, sometimes it can inspire you, but sometimes it can make you think, I should be doing more. And what do people say? Comparison is a thief of joy. And like, it can be, but for me personally, it actually inspires me quite a lot. I don't look at anyone on social media anymore and think, oh God, I'm jealous of that person. I just think that person's doing fantastic. Yeah. I would love to elevate myself.
It's a mindset shift, isn't it, Jeff? I mean, first of all, there's massive value in what you just said.
Yeah.
Like staying in your lane, not trying to compare yourself to everyone. That is so important. And it translates across, like, because I use that sort of analogy in business myself. Now, your business is kind of what you do. But I'm the same in terms of my business. I use social media to look at what other people are achieving and then think, how do I do that?
Yeah. I mean, with what you do as well, like I even look at like people that are in your industry and think, wow, that looks incredible. You know, like I've been brought up with a father that was a property developer. My mom used to help out a lot with the decor and the internal stuff. My mom loves that stuff. She's very artsy, and she's very into like making curtains and designing things like that. And she's brilliant with that kind of stuff. And that's it's something that I enjoy looking at, and I think, that gives me inspiration for like houses that I may live in the future, and rooms and stuff. I think it. No, I was going to say it's more of a girly thing, but like, I think girls probably, or females probably, look at decor and that kind of stuff more so, like making stuff look pretty, right? But I like to see a pretty home. I like to see a well displayed.
You look at it both ways, mate. I mean, what I was getting at with the social media thing is you can take those heights one or two ways. You can either take it as inspiration, or you can take it as intimidation. So if you look at it like, like in your industry, you look at somebody that's in incredible shape and you think, go great, that I'm never going to get there. Or you can look at it and go, I want to get like that. What do I need to do? How do I get there? What path do I need to take to achieve that?
It's balancing delusion and being realistic. Like a lot of, like, it's knowing what you can achieve. There's no point in, like, for example, with bodybuilding, I'm never going to be an open Mr. Olympia guy earning $500,000 in the US. But
is that what they get paid?
Well, there's athletes on contracts over $1 million a year,
right?
I
guess we're like 0.01% of the.
Yeah. It's quite funny because someone will be like, "Oh, what place did you get at the Olympia?" "Oh, 10th." "Oh, you only got 10th?" "Yeah, but that's like in the world." Like, so yeah, it's just important to stay in your own lane and focus on what you can do, and be realistic. But sometimes you got to be a little bit delusional. Like, it's finding that balance. I think
it's good to have goals. Absolutely good to have goals.
I don't think it's good to have goals. I think it's essential to have goals, because as we spoke about with purpose, if you don't have goals, what are you working towards? Like after Tyson Fury, for example, how many times has he quit boxing now?
Ironically, yesterday, mate. Let's see. Like, I heard that, and I thought it's one of two things. It will either signify the next spiral downwards of him and his mental health, or two, it's a big PR stunt because he wants a big payday for the next fight. Because we know he's spiraled before, and Tyson Fury, big advocate for mental health, but he's openly talked about how he needed.
He's brilliant.
Purpose.
I actually watched. He had like a reality TV show, right?
At Home with the Furies or something. Yeah.
I thought that was an amazing show. That really seemed to give a nice insight into Tyson Fury's life and how he is as a person. He was so real. All his mental health issues and whatnot. He was so real. And this is the thing: when the happiest moments in Tyson Fury's life, possibly when his kids were born and stuff, but when he won a boxing match, that dopamine release, that all that hard work that you've put in pays off. That's like me with bodybuilding. Last time I competed was 2023. I won the PCA Midlands in Classic, and when I got off the show, that was my first win post-cancer, which we haven't spoken about yet.
We're going to get there. We are going to get there.
That was my first win post-cancer. And bearing in mind, I know I spoke to you about this before, my father died from cancer. Diagnosis to death was 4 weeks. And he was the one taking me to bodybuilding shows as a kid. And following that win, I got off stage. I didn't even hardly get off stage, and I broke down into tears because there was so many emotions that went through my brain. And people said to me after I had liver cancer, they said, "Yeah, your bodybuilding's done now. That's it. You're never going to compete again." And that definitely drove me, to want to be successful again. But
that says something about you, though, mate. That's driven. That thing. That's that make or break moment. Okay, do I accept that and I'll crumble, or do I accept that as motivation to say, "Fuck you"?
Yeah,
I'll show you.
I think people really need to be careful around certain people when they say you can't do that, because I'm someone that, if you say that to me, I'm probably going to prove you wrong. But yeah, back to like the Tyson Fury thing in terms of goals and whatnot. Like, that show was a huge goal for me. I wanted to win that show. I wanted to win that show. I wanted to get a win at that show since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And I won it at 33.
How many times had you entered it up until that point?
So in bodybuilding, there's different classes.
Yeah.
So I actually did it as a first timer and got second. I did it. They held the British finals there one year, and I didn't place. And I was not prepared properly for that show. I made too many mistakes. But I was going to that show. I used to get the train up when I was a teenager and just go and watch people at the show compete and just, So I always I want to win that. I want to win that. And when I got that win, it was such a big win for me. And obviously my dad kind of didn't get me into bodybuilding, but he definitely made me aware of bodybuilding, taking me to shows and whatnot, being around other bodybuilders. And it was a very emotional time when I got off stage because it just felt like no one can take that away from me. That win is there. There's hundreds of people in the audience.
You'll always have that, mate.
Yeah, and like, in actual fact, I didn't really tell anyone I was doing that show. There was a few people close to me that knew, and interestingly, I had quite a few friends at that show.
Yeah,
and like I got off stage and they like, run up to me and give me a hug and whatnot, and people like taking videos of me and taking photos of me, tagging me on Instagram and stuff, and like the feeling was sensational. So yeah, it's important to have goals, but the problem is, like Tyson, when he's had his retirement phases, you have this desire to accomplish things, and then when it's taken away from you, and it happens to a lot of footballers as well, when they quit football, they turn into alcoholics or drug addicts or whatever. It's like they're not getting that high anymore from the competing side of it and the winning side of it, so they turn to drugs.
There's a well-known phenomenon, mate. It's common with like Olympic athletes, like winners' depression, kind of thing. So you've trained all your life to do something, and once you scale that height and you win it, it's that realization then of like, okay, what now? Well, what defines me now?
It fills your life. It's literally like, particularly bodybuilding, everything is so strategic. Your sleep, your meals, your training, your cardio, your step count, your mindset, everything is like all in. And then you win the show or you do the show. And then after that's like, what now?
How was that for you when you won? Like, was there a progression from that point, or like how did you cope at that moment?
I didn't train for. Okay, so after that show, I qualified for the British finals, and I think I said this to you before. I had a property where I've got a few properties that I rent out. The tenants moved out 2 weeks before the British finals, and they were like, "The house is fine. Please, can we have our deposit back?" It wasn't fine. So in that 2 week period, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the house.
Yeah,
my schedule was already fully booked. So to then do the house as well and get ready for the British finals, it wasn't physically possible. So it was kind of a kick in the teeth because the new tenants were moving in the Monday after the British finals.
right.
So I didn't do the British finals, and I had people messaging me like, "Oh, you need to do it. You need to do it. You're going to win. You're going to win. You're going to be British champ." I was like, I just couldn't, because I needed to look after the other side of the business, so to speak, with the property.
Yeah.
So hopefully this year we'll make it. I'm hopefully nothing will stand in my way this year.
You going for it again this year?
Yeah. So the plan is to do a similar thing. Yeah. And go and actually get to the British this time. I actually had to pull out of the British, the NABA British in 2018. Again, 2 weeks out, snapped a rib 2 weeks out. Didn't want to pursue because I felt like I couldn't train properly. I actually snapped on a leg press. So as my leg was coming down, I think I tensed my abs really hard, snapped the rib, went to hospital, and they x-rayed it, and the rib was cracked here, and it just hurt. The thing is, obviously in bodybuilding, you have to do certain poses. Yeah. So like there's a pose where you've got to really squeeze down hard on your abs, and every time I even tried to flex my abs, that rib just really hurt. Yeah. So that was another British finals I had to pull out of. So that's 2 British finals I had to pull out of now.
What I want to get into, mate, you've touched on it very briefly. is because you've been through some pretty extreme shit, mate. I'm going to leave you to tell the story of how you found out and what you've been through. But you've already mentioned that you've been through cancer.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that if you're okay with that. Let's talk about the whole journey and process. Yeah. And we're back. So, on a cliffhanger, mate. Left it on a cliffhanger. Your story, your journey. Tell me about what happened, mate, in terms of the cancer situation.
So I think we were third week into lockdown 2020, and I was listening to music, just doing some cardio, some steps where I live. I was looking down at my phone, changing the song. Wasn't looking where I was going. Phone was about here, and walked into a bus stop, stupidly, not looking where I was going. Phone smacked into the bus stop, bounced back into my stomach, and I felt really winded, like more winded than I'd ever felt before, and it was a really strange feeling. My body started to profusely sweat, and by the time I got home, I was struggling to stand up straight. Called an ambulance. Ambulance team turned up. By this point, I was pretty much like in and out of consciousness. They were scared, and they were like, something is really seriously wrong, but we don't know what's going on. They called another ambulance team. They didn't have a clue. They then called a doctor. He didn't have a clue. He said, right, blue light, A&E now. Got to A&E, and straight into CT scan, and they found that there was an internal bleed. Post that, well, I don't know if I was waiting for the results at that moment in time from the CT scan. I remember getting out of the hospital bed, trying to stand up. I needed to go to the toilet, and they brought this, I think it's called a commode, like a toilet on a chair type of thing.
Yeah.
And I sat down, went to the toilet. They wouldn't let me go to the toilet. They said, you can't leave this room. You've got to stay here. You're in a really bad position. So I'm sat on this toilet in my room, and I stood up, and due to the bleed, my blood pressure was very low. I collapsed, smashed my teeth out, cracked my head.
In hospital?
Yeah, in the hospital room. So I'm lay on and I was sick at the same time. So I stood up, I was sick, I fell in my own sick, smashed my teeth out, cracked my head open. The hospital staff have come running into the room. Shortly after that, I'm quite sure I heard one doctor say to another doctor, I think they'd seen the CT scan by this point, he's got not long left to live if we don't get the surgeons in. And they basically told me that I had tumours on my liver. One of them had popped, and you can die from that. You know, there are people that have died from that. I was very lucky. They got surgeons in, and what they had to do is they had to embolize one of the hepatic arteries to stop the bleed. Mm. I was awake through the surgery as well. Wow. Yeah, they went in through the arterial vein, if I remember correctly. Woke up the next day. I had is it the catheter that goes in the penis for 2 feet a week? Yeah. I'd never had one of those before. So I woke up the next day and I was like, it's fine. I can get up and walk around. Tried to rip the thing out.
Oh, mate, collectively, every bloke listening to that just crossed their legs.
Tried to rip it out. Ended up having to go to...
Why the fuck?
I didn't know how it was in there. I didn't know how it worked. Yeah. Ended up having to go to the urology department to see a urologist at Redditch.
I swear to God, everyone listening to that just crossed their legs. Everyone.
If you know, you know. One of my testicles was the size of like a golf ball for quite a while.
Because of you trying to
rip this catheter out. I also threw up everywhere again. I was on a high dose of morphine, like I was on a morphine pump.
I shouldn't laugh, but I'm like, I don't know what else to do at this moment, Jeff.
It wasn't pretty. Yeah. They eventually put me in a room on my own. I had a consultant come in, and he basically said, you've got 4 tumours on your liver, and we don't know if they're cancer yet. We suspect it is cancer. Eventually, I went to QE, had a biopsy. It came back as cancer. The end of 2020, I had chemo. I trained. I had to take 2 months off the gym. I was on IV antibiotics for 6 weeks. So I had a nurse come to my house every single day, 7 days a week for 6 weeks to put me on a drip for IV antibiotics because the surgery got infected.
Right.
And I was severely ill, very, very ill, almost bedbound, found it really hard to walk around. And yeah, that was quite a difficult process in my life. I had amazing support at that moment in time. I really did. How I came out of that was amazing. So I had chemo at the end of 2020. I remember training at Unique Fitness whilst I was on chemo.
The surgery, did they do surgery to remove the tumours or?
So no. So the first surgery was to just stop the bleed.
Okay.
Had chemo at the end of 2020, and that was to try and shrink the cancer to make it easier to then operate on and pull the tumours out. Had surgery April 2021. I was only in hospital for a week. The day I went in, they did the surgery. I was in there. I remember a little side story. I remember I was sat in the waiting department, and all of the people that were going in for cancer surgery. And there was a woman sat next to me with her husband, and she had lung cancer. And if I remember correctly, they didn't know if she was going to survive or not at that point. And I remember when she got called in, and her husband was walking out, and he just stared at the wall for like 10 minutes. And I just thought, wow. Like, that's got to be such a hard thing to deal with, to know that your wife has just gone into surgery and you don't even know how the surgery is going to be, or if she's going to survive or whatever. I thought that's a, that's a hard position to be in my opinion. So yeah, I had the surgery. Surgery went very well. They cut me down the center and across the oblique. I woke up the next day and the surgeon came in and she said the surgery went really well. You had 4 tumors and they're all gone now and you should be fine. And then they went off to be biopsied, all of them, and 3 out of 4 of them were cancer. Yeah. And then I was back in the gym 2 months after that. And then 6 weeks after that, I was training at a gym in Birmingham. And I had someone come up to me and say, "You look really good. Are you competing soon?" I was like, "Mate, I had surgery for cancer 3 months ago or something." So, and then I was back on stage in 2022 at my biggest I've ever been on stage.
Yeah.
So
recovery,
I
mate.
feel lucky to.
Not to push on a painful subject like that. How was the moment that they told you? Because the word cancer just incites fear in everybody.
Yeah.
But the moment they actually told you, I mean, it's 2 things, isn't it? Ironically, walking into that bus stop probably nearly killed you, but saved your life.
Yeah.
But how was it to be told you'd got cancer?
I didn't cry. It was like, okay, this is a new challenge that I didn't expect to have at 30 years old. And an interesting thing as well, the initial surgery, which I could have died from the bleed, my brother's first child was born the same day that I nearly died, and he lives in Australia. And he sent me a ton of photos of the birth. I remember it so clearly. And they live in Australia. And I thought to myself, first of all, I need to see my brother's child. That was his first child. I need to fight this. Again, back to purpose. I thought, right, I've got to get through this because I've got to see my nephew. I've got to be strong for him. I've got to fight this for him. And it also made me realize that I really wanted children. Because I'd had a lot of success with bodybuilding, with business, with clients, but I was like, that is a potential, you could say, legacy in itself. But I thought, well, but I want to bring a child into this world myself, and I want to, again, that adds another purpose, and I think it's really important to have children, personally. And I know you've got children.
I've got 2 kids myself, mate. Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the other things I was going to ask you, actually, because my family, there's been a lot of cancer.
Yeah.
So I've not been through it myself, but both of my parents have, and grandparents and everything. And it's always, I think, around something as momentous as that, it always gives you a different perspective on life.
Yeah.
Did you find that yourself?
I had a pretty positive, focused outlook on life anyway, but it certainly made me change my ways in some aspects of my life. And in 2018, so 2 years before I got diagnosed with cancer, my father, he had a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, and diagnosis to death was 4 weeks. So when I got diagnosed with cancer, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry to hear about your dad, but I can imagine that was like pretty damn triggering.
When your dad dies from cancer and you get cancer, you think the worst, particularly when they died in like 4 weeks.
How do you feel about it now, Jeff, in terms of like ongoing? Are you like, is it a concern now?
It's always a concern.
Yeah.
I think once you've had something like that once, you're always going to be more conscious. Well, you should be if you're not, because otherwise you're asking for it again. You know, if there's certain things in your life that you can optimize health-wise, I mean, sleep again, lack of sleep can contribute to cancer. You know, like when you sleep at night time, your body goes through a healing process and it gets rid of nasty things. Let's just keep it simple. Gets rid of nasty things that you don't want. So you're killing off cells that your body doesn't want and whatnot. So again, if you can optimize your sleep, if you can eat better, so it has made me more health conscious. Whereas before cancer, it was maybe a little bit more about looking good, feeling good. Now it's about actually like health as well. Like when I take on a client and they ask me like, what's my specialty? I'll say, well, muscle growth, fat loss, health optimization. Because I'm so conscious of health. And the thing is, back to mental health and physical health. If your mental health is in a good place, you're more likely to be good with your body. It's kind of, it works both ways. You know, look after your mind. That will help you look after your body. Look after your body. That will help you look after your mind. So all these things tie in. And then, you know, there's many aspects to that of how you can optimize your physical and mental health with nutrition, with sleep, with supplementation, with who you choose to spend your time with, you could say as well. Because, you know, there's a lot of people in toxic friends, toxic relationships.
100%.
That brings down their mental health as well. So it's important to be around positive people. And that's a good point.
It's a strong message, mate. I mean, the process that you went through in terms of the chemo and everything, had you always got it in the back of your head, right? I gotta get through this. I'm gonna get back to bigger and better. I mean, what you've done, mate, the recovery story is incredible. So to have gone through that at such a young age, but now to be saying, right, you're going to go back to the finals and you're going to try and like climb that next level of competition. Well, that's pretty good. You know what I mean? That's pretty good underdog recovery story, battle story, as it were.
Yeah, I believe anyone can have drive. I think a lot of people get called selfish for having drive, for having purpose, and it's like people might call boxers, MMA athletes selfish. They've got families, they've got kids, wives, husbands, and some people may say, well, you're going in a ring to get your face or body smashed in, caved in. But if that's what makes them happy, if that's their purpose, that's how they earn their money, whatever, is it selfish? It's like, is it selfish for, let's say I was with a girl that was a professional MMA athlete. I wouldn't want her to do that. But at the same time, it's like, if that's what makes her happy and actually makes her mentally happy, then is it selfish of me to say stop? You know, it's getting that balance right. But I think, for example, people like Elon Musk have been known to work like 100+ hours a week. Is that selfish on his family? Is that selfish on his kids? But at the same time, he's trying to do so much good. You know, from what I've.
It's a difficult one, mate. It is, because I know I can be quite hypocritical, because I can sit here and talk to people about how important balance is. And at times, my own life.
And you work a lot.
Yeah, my own life, my wife's like we can be really out of balance at times. But I'm also a believer that sometimes, particularly when you're building something new, things get out of balance. And it's just one of the key things. And again, this is be very applicable to people in the trades, because if you're self-employed, you'll know it. When you're building something new, shit does get out of balance, but it's just knowing when to know where your tolerances are and when to pull it back. Pull it back, reset, and go again.
Balance can often, and you could say generally, equals average, right? So like, if you've got every area of your life balanced, you could almost say you've got an average life. But if you excel in business, you may take a bit of a drop in your family life. It really depends what you want, right? But then the thing is, I think that it's admirable of people to really try and excel in business, in doing good stuff, and that might mean that your family life has there might be a detrimental impact on your family life in that respect. But hopefully, I'd like to think that if I had a wife and kids and stuff, they could go, right, daddy's trying to do really well here, and that's helping other people, inspiring other people. And then you've got to try and give back at some point, right? Like when I compete, if I'm with a partner at the time and they've supported me through that process of competing, I'll make sure we have a holiday. Within a couple of months after the last show, let's go on holiday. Let's spend some time together. Let's try and you can almost say build the relationship back, because when you are competing, the relationship can take a hit, because it's particularly if you're busy with work as well, you can really neglect your relationship. And I think it's admirable of people that manage to balance competing, having a partner, children, running a business or a job. I think that's. And I know quite a few people who do it, and I think, wow, well done, because I don't know how I would handle that, but maybe we'll see that one.
Yeah, I think it's just key to understand your own value system, isn't it? Because it depends on your definition of success as well, doesn't it? Because you can be an incredibly successful business person, but a very unsuccessful family person.
Absolutely.
And so some people, like, their metric of success would be flipped on its head. So, like, if you're a successful family person, then the business doesn't really matter. The money doesn't really matter. It's weird, isn't it? Like, I don't know the right and wrong answer. I can't preach it. Go ahead.
So I won't mention names, and I respect the people that I'm about to talk about. There's a guy that I know who's worth tens of millions. His wife is an alcoholic. They live in like a £2 million house. They at one point had like a helicopter in the garden, because you'd have meetings here and there. And I don't know how she got to that point. Did he neglect her, and that's why she ended up an alcoholic? And then I know another person who's very well aware of these other people that haven't had anywhere near the financial success, but they have an amazing family life, like a great family life. And that certain individual always says, "Oh, yeah, but that person, that they've got places in this country and places in that country and multiple properties and this car and that car." Yeah, but potentially the reason why his wife is an alcoholic is because he neglected his relationship, because he put everything into his business. So, but then the other person's like, "Oh yeah, but they've got all that." But I'm like, "Yeah, but you've had an amazing life. You've done so well. You might not be worth tens of millions.
Yeah.
But your family life, all your family love you, and you've got a great life. You might not be worth tens of millions, but I'm sure we both know people that are worth millions that are unhappy."
Oh God, yeah.
And that's
there's high profile cases, Jeff, isn't there? Like in the news, you hear about celebrities that take their own lives and things, and from the outside, we all look and go like, "Wow, like, why would somebody like that? They've got everything, but have they?"
What was the story with the guy out of that band that recently?
There's been a few, mate.
Had a drug overdose or something.
The one I saw, there was a Netflix documentary recently on Avicii. Took his own life. There was like the lead singer of Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There was the lead guy from The Prodigy. There was a lot of these very high profile. But again, when you actually look at their life, it's like, was it in balance? Or not even was it in balance? Was it in accordance with their own values? Because to me, so I've studied Buddhism.
Yeah.
And things like that. And the underlying sort of like that quest for, it sounds cheesy here, but the quest for like, what is happiness? How do you become happy?
Yeah, yeah.
The closest definition I could get that made any sense to me was that happiness is found by living life in accordance with your values.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah. And everyone's values are often different, or the
Yes.
ratios of those values are different.
Yeah.
And that's what makes everyone so different.
Yeah.
And like, if everyone was the same, life would be boring.
100%, mate. And that's it. And I think part of the problem in the world today, or our society, is that we think it's this cookie cutter mold where, you know, the school system, it starts there. They tell our kids what their values are. They tell them what will make them happy. No, it's not going to work. Because like you just said, everyone's different. What makes you happy is very clear. It's the lifestyle that you've chosen.
It can change though as well.
Of course it can. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing.
I plan to compete again this year, but I know that I'd like to think that having children, having a family would make me really happy.
But that's the beauty of life, isn't it?
Values can change.
What will make exactly your values at 20 won't be your values at 30, won't be your values at 40, won't be your values at 50. You're going to continually reevaluate and reset those values. And that's why life is an ever-growing challenge. Because,
for sure.
you know, those values will change and you've got to keep trying to then adjust your life and your balances and where you're putting your energy to try and tick them off as best as possible.
Yeah, for sure. As you go through life, things are going to change. Like the gym to me, when I was in my teens, up until probably my late 20s, that was like the most important thing to me. But as I'm getting older now, I'm 34 now, I'm like, right, I'm getting on. I'd like to have a family. I would like to so potentially this year could be the last year that I compete.
See, you've mentioned this a few times in the conversation, Jeff, already. Family, you know, and having kids is important to you. Once that happens at that stage in your life, whenever it might happen, that is then going to completely flip your value system on its head, because you're then going to have all this new input. And you might find it doesn't change it that much, or you might find that actually your values completely change, and now you want to value, you know, spending time with your family or whatever it might be. Things are going to change. And that's the beauty of life, isn't it?
Yeah. Often you need to sacrifice certain things to be in certain places. Yeah, for sure. There's something else I was going to say then, but it's gone.
Well, mate, it's been an insightful conversation in many directions. You've dropped out some really key, important messages. Is there anything we haven't spoken about, or any sort of like message that you think is important to get out there that we haven't discussed that you want to before we wrap it up?
Look after yourself. You know, that I think that's one of the most important thing. Like, like back to the balance thing. You know, you've got to look after yourself, but the thing is, you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, if you are, people really run themselves ragged trying to please other people, and often fail because they haven't got that much energy to give, or they're not in the best position themselves to really help other people. And sometimes people need to almost take a step away from people to an extent to really work on themselves, whether it's physically, whether it's mentally, so then they can give more to others in a more positive way.
Mate, you don't have to be overcomplicated, does it? Look after yourself. It's as simple as that. There's a saying I heard the other day, actually. I'm going to put this on the episode on camera, as it were, because it resonated with me. And that saying was, if you wake up in the morning and you're in a bad place and you're at 10%, and you go and you give that 10%, that day you gave 100%. Because that's all you had to give.
That's actually one thing that I say to clients. I say, like, you know, your ability to do things can change on a day-to-day basis, right? So as you just said, you might not have the normal 100%, but if you've only got 10% to give that day and you give that, it is giving your 100% that day. Just do what you can. That's another thing I say to clients a lot is, okay, you can't do this, this, and this, but you can do this, this, and this. Don't just throw that whole week away and just have that defeatist mentality. do what you can. Do things to your full ability on that given day or that given hour in the gym or whatever.
100%, mate. It's a really valuable bit of information, that, because often we're too quick to compare, as we touched on earlier, compare and beat yourself up because you can't do the full hour in the gym or 2 hours in the gym, because maybe that day you've only got half an hour. But if that's what you've got, that's what you got. That's okay.
Yeah. Just do your best.
Before we do finish up, mate, just again, where can people find you?
Instagram is the best place, and that is Jeff Raybould. JEFFRAYBOULD.
And if anyone listening, if you guys have got any interest in taking up any PT,
coaching,
anything like that, go check out Jeff's page, drop him a message. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to talk to you about anything that you've heard today. On a personal level, mate, fucking good luck this year. I hope you smash it, man.
You too. It's, you got a lot going on.
Yeah. Listen, we're only getting started. We're only getting started.
Sure.
And I'll be keeping an eye for that stage win this year. Hope it all goes well, mate. And same, look after yourself as well, man.
Thank you.
Everyone listening, thank you very much for listening. If you have enjoyed the episode, or even if you haven't, just give us a like, share, subscribe on all the platforms. Does make a big difference to the podcast. Very grateful for you to do so, and I'll catch you soon on the next one.